It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical, Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains, my colleague in a danger zone in Rainford, Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
All I know is, whatever I say for the week ahead, it can't be as dramatically crap as most of the things I said about week 3 were.
They are things such as
Going
pick
on
Calvin Ridley, Mainsy. Stay away. I don't know why you'd want Ryan Grant. He won't do anything. And you'll never win with that fancy team, stuff like that DFS team, stuff like that.
Also, going on, national radio and calling the Minnesota Vikings game a bye.
That's an issue. Just so you know, that's not going to get you back on national radio.
Well, it depends how much Nat loves the hot takes. If he doesn't mind them being hot, or if he's concerned about them being wrong, then we could have an issue.
Yeah, hot's okay. Wrong, we may have an issue.
Yeah.
I think we'll get on to said Minnesota Vikings and Buffalo Bills game in due course.
Must we?
Well, only in dispatches. Usual fare this week, Neil. We'll plug ourselves into the mains to get a couple of takes from week 3. We'll have your fancy darlings and losers, and then the question on everybody's lips: can Mainsy continue his amazing DFS hot streak with his team this week? Now I'm talking about it, highly impossible.
That's the spirit.
Once you jinx it, don't you jinx it, right?
Absolutely.
So let's get started and let's plug into the mains. I need to create a sounder for that, but I'm not really sure what one. Suggestions are welcome.
Something like an electric shock.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not 100% sure loud screaming is going to do anybody's ears if they ever go running during this pod.
Well, if you can try and find the noise that they make in Batman when Jack Napier, the handshake with the fella, that wasn't too obscene.
That wasn't too obscene. Yeah, I think we'll go for that. Not like Hellraiser or something.
No.
So number one, Neil. Rules are rules, even when they're bad ones. Now, I got into a discussion. I could have got into a discussion with Green Bay Twitter, which is one of the strongest UK Twitters in the group. Like, they love them some Green Bay, and they don't like it when their favourite players get penalised when they don't believe it's fair. I managed to stay away from people, and only discussed it with a sensible, intelligent fellow ginger, Mr. Will Gavin. And the issue we're talking about is Clay Matthews. I'm going to use a WWE parlance and a little bit tongue-in-cheek when he speared Alex Smith into the ground. The issue with the Clay Matthews decision is not that it's wrong, because unfortunately it's right. The issue is that it exists in the first place. But I'm going to, before we discuss that, I want to give you a tweet from Ryan Russillo, ESPN and Ringer. People keep complaining about these calls, and I get how frustrating it is. But this is what happens when your alumni sue the league and the majority of the coverage revolves around how dangerous your game is. They are ruining the game and taking it out of the 1985, Chicago Bears style of world. But there's an unfortunate reason for that, and the truth is that it's almost being proven that that game from 1985 was killing people.
Yeah.
I look and think, you don't like the penalty, I understand. Well, what are you supposed to do? I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm really not. But unfortunately, you're going to need to learn to do something else.
The issue, I would say, obviously the 80s, the 60s up to the 80s, with a combination of rampant steroid use, over physicality, especially on the defense, and hard hitters, is that an awful lot of the people who have sadly left us, who played in this era, who have been tested post-mortem and discovered to have CTE, very small number of them are quarterbacks. So quarterbacks, if they're being, let's assume, let's take the fact that the language of the rule makes it illegal. But let's say the tackle that Clay Matthews was flagged for against Washington, he would literally have to keep smacking his head on the floor for that to cause a concussive brain injury, as I understand it. But for me, it's as I say, as the rule is written, Clay Matthews, it was a foul, as the rule is written. Unfortunately, the rule, it seems to want players to perform acts that defy modern science, in the sense that they want them to tackle the player and then somehow levitate back off them, which I'm no scientist, nor am I, a sports medicine. I'm not big on sports medicine. That's Dr. Green's shtick. It's effing impossible. And you find now that we're trying to protect quarterbacks. William Hayes of the Miami Dolphins hit a quarterback, tried to spin off to not get flagged, and suffered injury himself. Well, why is his status more important than the quarterbacks? Because the quarterbacks are the glamour boys of the NFL.
So there's a couple of responses to that. Like, you're absolutely right. This last 3 weeks have been the most viewed in 5 years, probably due to the fact that points are up, because people like points. And us, all the experts can say as much as that. I love defense, I love that Ravens defense, or the 85 Bears, but most people want to see Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, who, by the way, we'll probably come on to later, but has an 80% completion percentage and a 0% interception percentage.
Yeah, no one was running to their mobile device or their Game Pass account on Monday to watch Jacksonville, Tennessee again.
And that's the flaw. We can say it's not the game I was brought up with, and it's not. But maybe sometimes that may be a good thing in a multitude of different ways. Neil, plugged into the mains number 2 for all those hot take experts like yourself. September football is insane, and it shouldn't be trusted. So the pre-season, we know, doesn't mean anything, but it used to not mean anything and players played in it. Now it doesn't mean anything and players don't. So a lot of the better teams use September as pre-season. Even so, I don't think anybody expected a week. Maybe individually things happened, but this combined thing happened. The Browns won. The Bills, I don't think we can accurately state, destroyed the Minnesota Vikings. The Lions in Wisconsin or Minnesota, wherever the Bills decree they were. The Lions ran all over the Pats. That's right, the Detroit Lions. Washington held Aaron Rodgers one leg or not to 17 points. And well, the Titans beat the Jags. That happens a lot, but no one expected it after the performance the Jags put in. I wouldn't be too worried for most of the teams that lost: Minnesota, New England, Green Bay, Jacksonville, who I think all 4 we picked to be in the playoffs, and 3 of them we picked to win their divisions. Well, unless they lose again this week.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the truism is it's never too early to start winning. In my opinion, it's always too early to start losing. This mentality as well that I've seen, and it usually manifests itself a bit later in the season when the last undefeated team goes down, of, oh, it's good to get the defeat out the way now. Well, I'm a big believer that victory does paper over your errors, whereas you do learn something from defeat. Do I then want to get beat so I can learn more about my team? Do I bollocks? I want to win every game, so I want to play every game as if I want to win it. Now, the New England Patriots have made something of a cottage industry of starting ridiculously slowly. The problem was, even when they started slowly, they had a bit more oomph about them than what they've shown in the last 2 games, where they've been bossed and manhandled. And usually it would be a case of, well, if the Patriots haven't fired on offense, it's because Rob Gronkowski hasn't played. Well, he's played. So they look lost on defense, and they look very limited on offense. I mean, just, to bring it into my wheelhouse, in half a game less played, Josh Allen has more fantasy points than Tom Brady. And that's not great.
I'm gonna go back to a tweet from resident Boston expert Bill Simmons, and he was put the sky is falling / Boston media panic button / Brady Belichick era early season losses ranked. We'll just give the top 3. Number 1 with a bullet is the Kansas City Chiefs loss in 2014. Number 2 is actually last week's Lions loss, and number 3 is Buffalo in 2003. The Kansas City Chiefs loss and the Buffalo loss in the future became a Super Bowl win. So I think Bill is suggesting it's probably a bit early to be putting too much soil on that grave.
They do have a track record of getting out of slow starts and finding their feet, but Father Time being defeated and all that, it'll stop happening once. And then what do you do? When we don't know, we generally do not know how Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski and the like will react and cope if they're 5-5 or 4-6. We don't know. Now, I'm not saying it's ever a situation they want to find themselves in, but most Patriot fans will acknowledge that they haven't had to see it. And given he's 41, he has no wide receivers, the ground game is giving absolutely nothing, and the defense isn't stopping anyone. Do we think a 41-year-old Tom Brady could dig them out of a hole, the same hole that a 31-year-old Tom Brady could do? I don't know.
I don't know, Neil, but I think we're about to find out. That's it from the news section of the show. So let's get heavily involved fantasy-wise, and let's find out who Neil's darling is this week.
Hello, darling.
Well, it's a low-key darling this week. It's not the type of player you're literally going to run away and set up home with. I think it's more of a fling, and that's Matt Breida. Now, obviously, he is still tied for the most rushing yards in the NFL. But one thing that has changed that is to his advantage is that his quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, went down injured. As someone pointed out, that in 2008, so 10 years ago, when Tom Brady was lost for the season, it was against the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, again, enough with, because there's nothing else to link Brady with Garoppolo, so we need that. So, okay, let's move on. Last year, CJ Beathard, who's going to come in, he's going to be the starting quarterback for San Francisco in the absence of Garoppolo. I'm sure there's a former 49ers quarterback still on the market who they could bring in, but I digress. He targeted running backs, I think, on about 28% of his throws. So that's why they made Carlos Hyde look like a genuine 3-down back, which he's not. So I think Beathard this week, he's already averaging 5.2 yards per carry before contact, which is the highest rate in the league. He's had 159 and 117 yards from scrimmage in the last 2 weeks. And bear in mind, last week it looked like he was the one who was going to be lost for the year. That was a scary-looking injury, but he did bounce back from it. He's still only running 14 routes per game through 3 weeks. But as the undisputed lead back, and he is, Freddie Morris, bless him, is not overtaking Matt Breida. He should see an uptick in targets, considering that CJ Beathard is one of the league's premier check-down Charlies.
I love the fact premier check-down Charlies. There's a group. This guy is only a championship level check-down Charlie. This guy, however, is Champions League.
It says something that now, this year, the realm of the check-down Charlie does have some serious interlopers. Obviously, Sam Bradford is in there. He's in, the VIP area. He's got his Cristal and his bitches. Alex Smith keeps popping in and out, depending on his mood. But the new kid on the block that everyone wants to talk to when he bounces into that club is Andrew Luck.
He is, and we may come on to Andrew Luck a little bit later.
Noodle arm doesn't begin to describe it.
As a lover of Andrew Luck in the past, I hope that this is just something that we are building back up. However, I'm concerned that it isn't. Talking of people who we're less than happy with in their performance in relation to where we believe they should be, let's get on to look at the fancy loser this week.
Well, the loser is in fact a position group, and it's a position group of two teams who happen to be playing each other, and that's the running back cartels of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tennessee Titans. Neither team has produced what one could call a dominant or lead back. I think Dion Lewis has been more efficient than Derrick Henry when given the chance and has had more chances, but the Eagles very, very stingy against running backs, even in the passing game. Obviously, the Eagles still don't know what the status of Rodney McLeod is, but their secondary should be up near full strength. The Titans haven't exactly been generous to running backs either, and there's a huge problem with the Eagles that we don't know who the running back is going to be. Last week, Wendell Smallwood looked okay. He ran angry, as I think the phrase is, but Corey Clement was there. He was going to take the passing down work, but even Wendell Smallwood saw some passing work. Josh Adams played. He looked quite good. A little bit Latavius Murray-like in that he plays very upright. This week, Jay Ajayi might be back. He's very touchdown dependent, and we don't know about Darren Sproles. I think both these situations are a mess. Even with the bye week starting, I think unless you absolutely positively have to, if you're a Dion Lewis owner, for example, I'd steer clear of the running backs in this game.
Yeah, and the teams who aren't playing this week, one of them is Washington, so I don't know how many people picked up Adrian Peterson who then need to go down the avenue of looking for someone else in the Philadelphia Tennessee game.
See, I got lucky this week, considering the buys. I have, in my Scott Fishbowl team, I have 3 quarterbacks. You can start 2. So I've been starting Cam Newton and Andy Dalton. Now, obviously, Cam Newton is on a bye, but luckily, Sam Bradford had played so badly for the first 3 games of the season. Josh Rosen has been brought in, so I've looked into Rosen spot starting as my second quarterback.
Nice. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Sucked so bad is an absolute understatement of the millennia. That's the fancy darling and loser. But let's focus daily on what you should pick for your daily fancy team of the week.
Mains and Duts. Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Show me the money.
Show me the money indeed, Mains. As 3 weeks on the run, I've been victorious in my DFS challenge on DraftKings. As we've said before, if you fancy a challenge, hunt down Mainsy 7, and I'll have a game against you. Why not?
In the interest of full disclosure, I did win 3 of my head-to-head matchups last week.
No one slagged off your team live on air.
True.
Okay, Neil. So, usual fare. DraftKings, quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a defense and special teams. Neil, who is your quarterback?
My quarterback at 6,600 is Drew Brees. New Orleans Saints are at the New York Giants. Brees last week became the first player in NFL history with at least 350 passing yards, 3+ touchdown passes, and 2 rushing TDs, and 0 interceptions in the same game. In 7 career meetings with the Giants, he has averaged 311 passing yards per game. He has 20 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. And he's Drew Brees. He's pretty special.
Sometimes I think do we have this conversation every year? How we underestimate the genius of Drew Brees?
I did send the text out to the group this week saying, is it possible that despite everything he's accomplished, Drew Brees is still underrated.
Yeah, he's got at the moment he's got an 80% completion percentage and he hasn't thrown an interception. I mean, it does help that I think Michael Thomas has a 95% catch rate, which is mind blowing. But yeah, Drew Brees is really, really good.
Yeah, can't argue with him. That's why he's in this team.
For those who listened to the week 1 show where we gave our picks for the year, I was heavy Chargers. Steering 1 and 2, you'd be thinking Mainz is going to have to back off this soon. I would like to suggest that 2 losses are against the best 2 teams in the league right now, Kansas City and the Rams, and the Chargers' schedule is as follows: 49ers, Raiders, Browns, Titans, Seahawks, Raiders, Broncos, Cardinals. That's a menagerie of garbage. So I am not off the the LA Rams hype train, LA Chargers hype train. That's easy for me to say. I'm picking quarterback Phillip Rivers, Los Angeles Chargers, 6,500.
Has a 100 plus QB rating in his last 4 games, averages 321 yards and 3 touchdowns per game in his career meetings against the 49ers, and needs only 222 passing yards to pass John Elway for 8th all-time in passing yardage.
Also, under the radar, given the Garoppolo injury, which is hidden the fact that the 49ers are terrible on defense, like absolutely awful.
Which we did suggest they were.
Yeah, but it's kind of gone for some reason. Oh, they played Minnesota, and everyone's focused. I think you just focus on the quarterback, and you're like, no, like you know the did you watch the Bills like stop the Vikings, and then like the 49ers didn't do that. It's one of them. You need to keep like look into that, and without a quarterback and a load of check down Charlies, I have a feeling that that Phil Rivers may feed this week. Who's your running back 1, Neil?
Running back 1, I was tempted with Alvin Kamara, but instead I went with Saquon Barkley in the same game. I suspect there may be points in this game. Saquon Barkley has accounted for 31.4% of the Giants' fantasy points among their skill players. He's had at least 20 touches in every game. He's had 100 plus scrimmage yards in the last 3 games. And he is leading the NFL rookies with 376 yards from scrimmage. The Saints defense is trash. And it's that type of thing you'd assume that it's going to help Eli Manning and the passing game. Well, aside from Odell Beckham, Saquon Barkley has been the passing game. So I think we'll get the volume on the ground, and also he'll get his targets through the air as well.
I've also picked Saquon Barkley because both of my running backs will show like this. As we've said, when you do DFS, you need to remember that it's PPR, and at the moment, running backs are cheat codes in PPR leagues, absolute cheat codes. So like, not last week, week before, Saquon Barkley had 14 receptions. That's 14 points. He hasn't, regardless of yards, he's got 14 points on that alone. So my RB1 is also Saquon Barkley. Who's your running back 2, Neil?
Running back 2, back in with a puncher's chance, is Philip Lindsay. Obviously, he was ejected last week for throwing a punch, which is always a good idea when you're playing a game against people wearing helmets. He's 4,500. The Chiefs are playing at Denver on Monday night, I believe. The Chiefs rank, these stats, most of these stats are courtesy of Rick Rebar, as per usual. The Chiefs rank 32nd in receiving points allowed to running backs. And if you look over the last few weeks, players similar to Lindsay, like Austin Eckler and Matt Breida, have had over 110 yards from scrimmage against the Chiefs. Lindsay has 100-plus scrimmage yards in 2 of his last 3. He may well have got there on last week if he hadn't decided to start swinging, start throwing hands. One concern would be that it is something of a committee with the Broncos running backs. Lindsay and Freeman are the only pair of rookie teammates to each have 150-plus scrimmage yards in 2018.
Running back 2 should be my running back 1, but as Neil mentioned, Saquon Barkley, I copied him. I've spent all my money on running backs. As I said, PPR is a cheat code, 9,600. Alvin Kamara, 20 receptions last week.
20 targets.
20 targets last week, sorry. Multiple receptions, multiple yards. Giants are not a good football team. He has Drew Brees as his quarterback. Alvin Kamara, 9,600.
Yeah, okay, strap in because I've got quite a few for this boy.
Go for it.
190 yards from scrimmage last week, 20 targets, which was the most by a running back since 1992 when the NFL began tracking targets. 15 receptions, the most by a running back since the dawn of the 21st century. 30 receptions through 3 weeks, most of any running back in NFL history. He has averaged 125 yards from scrimmage in his last 7 road games. He's averaging 35.7 routes run per game this season. And he's also the first running back with 2 100-yard receiving games in the first 3 weeks of the season since Thurman Thomas in 1991. He is very, very good. You look at all the points he scored last week and remember one incredible stat. He didn't score a touchdown.
It's worked out really well for the Saints because they're basically going to have the ability to run Kamara into the ground for 4 weeks, then put him in an ice bath and pick up, the other great running back they've got.
And the same can be said for some of my fantasy teams as well.
Yeah, good work. Who's your wide receiver 1, Neil?
My wide receiver 1 is Michael Thomas, 9,100. First player ever to have at least 10 receptions in all 3 games to start a season. He had 10 catches for 129 yards last week. Has 38 receptions, which is the most by any player in his team's first 3 games of a season. Leads the NFL with 398 receiving yards. And as you pointed out, is catching about 95% of his passes.
I think, we should, dwell on that stat, because that is unbelievable that basically anything thrown at him is caught. That's unheard of.
I think it's weird. If you remember a few years ago when Le'Veon Bell first broke out, there was still a few people who were a bit like, I don't really... He's good, but he's not that good. And all of a sudden he just kept putting up these numbers week after week when he realised, yeah, he's actually one of the best in the league. I think that's what Michael Thomas is doing, because I still think there are some people who don't think he's the elite wide receiver. Yeah, no, he is.
I think if you said, name me the top 3 wide receivers, I don't think many people had named Michael Thomas.
No.
And I think Dan was suggesting that most of them people are wrong.
I suggest most people are wrong.
Yeah, you do. My wide receiver 1 is my handcuff to Phillip Rivers. It's Mike Williams.
BMW. Big Mike Williams.
Big Mike Williams. He's 4,500. Last year's first round draft pick. Starting to hot up a little bit and gaining a bit of confidence with his quarterback, Phil Rivers.
Has out-targeted his brother, Tyrell, 15-11 this season. And last week he had 81 receiving yards and his first multi-touchdown game.
I do that. And as you can see, as I spent my money on running backs, I haven't got any wide receivers over 5,000. Neil, who's your wide receiver 2?
Wide receiver 2 is something of a coming man in his offense, and that's Tyler Boyd. The Bengals are playing Atlanta. Tyler Boyd is 4,600. Boyd, in his last 2 weeks, has 6 for 91 and a touchdown, 6 for 132 and a touchdown. He lines up mostly in the slot, and in the last 2 weeks, Atlanta have allowed 12 receptions for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns to opposing slot receivers. So Tyler Boyd, 4,600. if AJ Green is not healthy and doesn't go, then I think Boyd will see even more targets. So I think he's a steal, even if I wasn't looking to save money at this spot, which I was.
I've also got Tyler Boyd in my team. Basically, for exact same reason, right? Got a lot of targets in recent weeks, which shows that he's gaining confidence in the offense. And AJ Green is banged up, and if he's banged up, then Boyd will see a vast percentage of the targets that AJ Green would have had. Yeah, 4,600. I picked Tyler Boyd too. Who's your wide receiver 3, Neil?
Now, this was the real. Put it this way, this was the type of selection I would have mocked you for last week. Quincy Enunwa, New York Jets at the Jaguars. Enunwa's 4,300. He does have at least 50 receiving yards in the last 4 games, and interestingly, well, it's interesting to me, ranks second in the AFC with 14 catches for first downs. And that's pretty much all I've got to say.
There's a logic behind the pick, right? He's 4,300. You've got no money left. He is the number 1 wide receiver on the Jets. He is getting more targets than Robbie Anderson. He's not necessarily a burner. It's more short yardage, first down type idea. And the Jags are not going to let you get massive yards, so it's going to be short to medium passes anyway. It makes sense to me.
Good chance he'll line up in the slot, so he'll be away from AJ Boye and Ramsey if he's fit.
Absolutely. My wide receiver 3 is hoping to pick up from the Buffalo Bills falling back down to earth. That's Geronimo Allison. He's 4,700. Definitely involved in the offense in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Seeing some good targets, seeing some good receptions. So expect that to continue against although a team that surprised a lot last week, still a terrible Buffalo Bills team.
Yeah. Allison does have a touchdown catch in 2 of his last 3 games. The only concern I would have is that his target share has gone down from 21.6 in week 1 to 8.9 in week 3. And they've been behind, so they've had to throw. So
they have, although as someone who probably watched that game more than most, I don't know if the floor got 50% of the target shares based on what I watched of Aaron Rodgers.
The floor is lava.
Well, if it was lava had 50% of the throws. Who's your tight end, Neil?
The tight end, we talked before about noodle-armed Captain Luck. Eric Ebron isn't going to be stretching the field, so he's going to be in the nice, you can just about get it to me here, Andrew, zone. He played 88% of the snips. He played 88% of the snips last week. He saw 11 targets, including 3 end zone targets. The Texans have allowed... Now, if we thought the Michael Thomas stats were impressive, this is equally so. The Texans have allowed 13 of 14 targets to be converted into 196 yards and 2 touchdowns to tight ends in 2018. And say Ebron is 3,600. Does have a touchdown catch in 2 of his last 3, and in his last game against the Texans, which was with the Lions back in 2016, he had 7 catches for 79 yards. Not great, but tight ends are dumpster fire.
Exactly. I think that I'm not paying 7,000. I think it was 7,100 for Gronk when I don't know what his mindset or injury record is going to be like. I've also picked Eric Ebron. Jack Doyle banged up. Seeing a lot of snaps last few weeks. And unfortunately, as you quite rightly pointed out, Andrew Luck being unable to throw it more than 5 yards.
Couldn't throw a party, let alone a football.
Let's hope it improves, Neil. Let's just hope it improves. Who's your flex, Neil?
Flex is fancy darling Matt Breida. San Francisco at LA Chargers. He's 5,800. I'd say he ranks second for all running backs with at least 10 touches with 8.4 yards per touch. So we've seen, hopefully he'll get an uptick in his passing work. We've seen, as I say, he's already one of the league leaders in terms of his rushing. It's just a question of how good the Chargers defence is going to be, considering it has been somewhat torched in 2 out of 3 games so far.
I'm going to talk you through my flex in the logic sense. So, rookies train together. They go to training camp earlier, and then gain a bond between each other in terms of output. This week, a rookie makes his first start, and he will be last week in a game where he did come in. Another rookie had double-digit targets. That other rookie was Antonio Callaway. He's 4,300. He's playing the stinky Oakland Raiders, and I expect the Baker Mayfield to Antonio Callaway card to be thrown a lot by Hugh.
Obviously, he did get the targets, as you pointed out. He wasn't particularly efficient with them. I think it was 4 of 10 for 20 yards, I think it was. However, he is one of only 4 rookies with 100-plus receiving yards and at least 1 touchdown reception this season. And 25% of the completions allowed by the Raiders have gained 20 yards or more. So he's the downfield threat for the Browns. He only needs to catch 1.
I think that's it, right? He's not moving the chains, but he may move them into the end zone. And he's playing the Raiders, and they could be a dumpster fire. That 14-1 that we mentioned on them being the first pick, they're in pole position right now.
Do you know, though, the Raiders have not trailed in the first 3 quarters of any game this season?
I know, it's crazy. Just it's not how you start, it's how you finish, yeah?
And they finish at 45 minutes rather than an hour.
Yeah, they're a 50-minute team, right? Who's your defence and special teams, Neil?
Defence and special teams are the Cleveland Browns, 2,900. The Browns have 11 takeaways this season. That leads the NFL. It's the most they've had through 3 games since the 2001 season. Myles Garrett has 4 sacks this season. Joe Schobert had an interception and 2 passes defended last week. Since 2017, he is the only player in the NFL with at least 150 tackles, at least 2 sacks, and 2 interceptions. And Larry Ogunbojobi is tied for second among NFL defensive tackles with 5 tackles for loss. He's aiming for his 3rd in a row with 2+ tackles for loss. The Raiders, as I say, Derek Carr was too aggressive, in the words of John Gruden last week. Well, he can't win, can he, John? Because you criticised him in week 1. He was fine in week 2. In fact, he was damn near perfect in week 2. And now he's too aggressive again. Maybe it's your fault.
Yeah, maybe this isn't. Maybe it's not me. It's you. My defense and special teams is San Francisco is the LA Chargers against the San Francisco 49ers. See a Derwin James interception in my future. See sacks. Not convinced by CJ Beathard. 3,900 to get you the LA Chargers.
I don't think this would have been a terrible play even if Garoppolo had been fit.
I don't either. I think it becomes better, right? I do think it becomes better, but I just wonder if it's. I'm just taking it because I think it's a good one. So Neil, let's recap. Who's your quarterback?
Drew Brees.
I got Phil Rivers. Running back 1.
Saquon Barkley.
I also have Saquon Barkley. Who's your running back 2?
Philip Lindsay.
I have Alvin Kamara. Who's your wide receiver 1?
It's up for grabs now. It's Michael Thomas.
Sorry, I've just been sick in my mouth. Mine is Mike Williams. I don't think I'll ever be able to look at Michael Thomas the same way again, to be honest. Wide receiver 2.
Tyler Boyd.
I've also got Tyler Boyd. Wide receiver 3.
Quincy M.A. Sorry, Quincy Enonwa.
I've got Geronimo Allison. Who's your tight end?
Eric Ebron.
I also have Eric Ebron. Flex.
Follow the breeder.
I've got Antonio Callaway. And who's your defense and special teams?
The Cleveland Browns.
And I have the LA Chargers. Neil, that's it for the show. So let's tell people where they can read and catch you this week.
I'll say follow me on Twitter at ndutton13. Usual fare for me. I had my stats column. So 5 interesting statistical nuggets I took from week 3 just to spread the love around. They weren't all offensive players. I had one about a defensive player and one about a kicker. There's also my game level similarity projections reports for quarterbacks and tight ends. You can read that at Rotoviz, and also my wide receiver usage report also out on Rotoviz, probably by the time you listen to this.
Fantastic. I'm at Mainsy7. As I said, if you want to have a DFS match against me, look for me on DraftKings. I'm Mainsy7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. We'll tweet out the link to all the shows and give you our DFS teams during the week. And that's it from us. Enjoy week 4. Hope you make some money or win your fantasy leagues, courtesy of our input. And these top guys are out.